Grayson Bakery uses its profits to help the local community. We support the work of our parent, which is the Grayson Foundation. It's a holistic approach to community development. We provide health care services for people living with HIV and AIDS, child care services, after-school services. We build housing for low-income persons, including formless homeless people, people living with HIV and AIDS, or low-income families. And the Grayson Bakery's profits go back to support that work. We operate under what we refer to as the 10 guiding principles. Now, those that know my Christian background think that somehow this came back to the 10 Commandments. It had nothing to do with 10 Commandments. I was writing the guiding principles, and when I was finished, I looked up, I had 10. That's all it had to do. I'm not going to go through all 10 with you today. I'm just going to highlight a couple of them for you. One of them is that we will maintain an open hiring policy. The open hiring policy resulted in the hiring of Rodney. Open hiring means we will hire the first person to apply for an entry-level position regardless of their background. We simply have a hiring day where we number the applications and call people in based on the number assigned to that application when we have an opening. If we have an opening, it generally happens because someone else didn't report to work that day or that evening, and we will get on the phones and start calling people. The first person to say, yes, I can come in, has a job. If they're not available, they're not available. We don't cross them out until after 3 phone calls, after we've tried them 3 times. We also inform them that if they're not called, that they should come back and reapply if they're not called within 30 days. Because that meant we've tried to reach them and we couldn't. Number didn't work, they weren't at home, whatever the issue is. And so we'll try them 3 times, and if they're not available, we'll move on to the next person. The bakery will empower its employees by paying competitive wages and working with them to enhance their skills and professional opportunities. Today, we don't pay what I refer to as a living wage. We pay what I refer to as a fair wage. I want to move us towards a living wage. Today, if we paid a living wage, we'd be out of business. But we want to move towards a model that we can get there and pay them a living wage, which leads to one of our other principles, which is that we will automate when necessary to stay competitive. But it also goes further that we will automate when we can afford to, buy the equipment, bring it in, carry the debt load, so that we can pay higher wages. We had a very conscious conversation about whether or not we wanted to have 10 employees at $7 or 7 employees at $10. And if you have 7 employees at $10, it means you have less jobs. And if you have 7 employees at $10, you still have to produce the amount of product that you need to produce. So you need to have a higher level of efficiency with employees, and generally that means automation. Well, the people that work in Grayston, at the Grayston Bakery, we have about 70 employees. Then in the Grayston Housing, we have about 200 apartments, 220 some odd apartments. In Grayston Health Services, we provide services to about 135 people, about 50 per day. And then in child care, we have 80 families, 80 children, which comprise about 75 families. And so altogether, we're serving somewhere around 1,200 families a year. And of those 1,200 or so families, only about 10% are receiving services from more than one area of Grayston. So, someone living in a housing may have a child in child care. But now that our housing has been around now about 15 years, some of our children have aged out of our child care center, and so those children are going for after-school programming and receiving services in that way. And they may receive them at Grayston or they may receive them elsewhere. Some of our people who are receiving health care may need a job or may want a job at Grayston Bakery or somewhere else. But for the most part, people identify with what service they want to receive at Grayston, and the other services are available to them, but they don't see their need there. We also pay a lot of attention to how much does one person's life revolve around Grayston, and is that good? Is that bad? How does that impact them? How does that impact our community? And so we like to say that the services are available to all of the people at Grayston, but they're not required to receive all of their services from us. And in some areas, it's healthier for them to get out. So, and I can give an example of that is someone who lives at our Easton House, which is our health care facility, and they also receive health care from our health care services program called Maitri. We encourage them to find some way of leaving our premises, because they could literally live and come downstairs, receive the food. We provide food for those residents, not for all of our residents, those residents. It's called supportive housing. And then we provide health care for them. They could actually never leave the site. Right. And that's not a healthy way of living. Yeah. So we'd encourage that person to look for an outlet and a way of getting off site. I think the Grayson Bakery and the other Grayson services are about providing people that support so they can move their lives forward. Talking about Ben & Jerry's, Ben & Jerry's has been a big part of that for Grayson and providing us the opportunity to provide them a product at a profit to Grayson so that we could take that profit and use it towards the work that we're doing. Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield have used their business for social change, and they've done it in the model of capitalism and have been very successful at it. It's also proven that people want to support an organization like that. Now, they make some great ice cream. We make some great cake. You don't make great ice cream, you make nonsense, people aren't going to support that. You make nonsense in terms of cake, people are going to support that. So you're going to make great ice cream, you have to make great cake, or what we make for Ben & Jerry's is great brownies. And so our brownies are the exclusive brownies for Ben & Jerry's and their Ben & Jerry's chocolate fudge brownie ice cream. And so you can use that model to generate a profit. You can also use the podium that comes along with being a multi-$100 million corporation like Ben & Jerry's to speak to these issues, to encourage others to do it, or use the podium that comes along with being a successful business that hires people from a low-income area with quote-unquote unemployable people and be profitable to speak to the issue of, yes, this is a model that could be taken up by anyone and be successful. We're trying to marry the who we are with the what we want and what we want to do. It is possible. We don't need to compromise. This seemingly conflicting ideas applies to organizations and society as well. We can do good and do well. If you want any more information about that, that's my personal website, julius@dogooddowell.com or dogoodwell.com. We can provide society where no child is left behind, but yet society can move ahead. We can provide a society where the village raises a child and that village is not ravaged by a disease. We can have a society where people believe in a supreme being but don't kill or ostracize someone if they call him or her by another name. We can have a society where we do more than just tolerate diversity, we embrace it. We can become a society where men and women and all men and women can get a job, earn a livable wage, have access to decent and affordable housing, raise their family in the American dreams. These things are within our grasp as a society if we just move towards who we want to be. We can be good and do well. You can bake your cake and eat it too. I think the federal government has a role to play in taking care of the people of the country, but I also think it's businesses' responsibility. Businesses actually prosper from the community, and they don't have profits if there is no community actually supporting those businesses. And so I think they have a responsibility to go back and take care of the community. Now, the phrase I hear quite often is this notion of giving back, and I actually don't like the phrase because it implies a different kind of relationship between the community and the business, which is one, the business takes, and so then there's some notion that it needs to give back. I think that there shouldn't be taking in the first place. There should be a sharing of resources, and there should be a full accountability for the cost of the business, doing business in that community in general. When we talk about the use of land, for the most part, if you own the land, you can almost do anything you want to the land. But that does have its consequences to the rest of the community. And so a business or an individual should have the responsibility to pay for the full consequences, the full use, or I say abuse of that land. And so if they do that, there's more going back into the community because the business is paying for that full cost.